You guys are sick in the head for liking that Wicker trailer. I mean, this thing is literally made out of wicker. And you guys are waiting in that cinema to see what exactly? Her fall in love with an inanimate object? Y'all are sick, man. See you there.
Hi everyone, welcome back. If you don't know me, my name is Catherine, and if you do know me, I'm so grateful that you can make it here or make it back from wherever it is on the internet that you happen to drop in from. So, today, guys, this will be a very interesting video. I want to talk about Wicker.
I'm not playing with y'all. I want to see it on my screen. Literally in the trailer, you could hear it grow. You can hear it grow. I don't want to leave it to the imagination. I want to see it. So I better see that pine pecker, that wicker willy, that timber tallywhacker, that dogwood.
At the risk of yet again not being wrong, just being early, is that Wicker movie not the gender bent version of Obsession? Like, is the plot in both of these movies not person makes supernatural wish to get non-consenting slave? You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying it's like, oh, it refutes the purpose of Obsession. I'm saying it's wrong when both people do it. Right? Like, why when women do shit like this, is it seen as like, oh, that's dark fantasy, that's romance. But when men do it, it's like rape weird. It should be weird when anyone does it.
Now, if you are discovering my channel for the first time, I want to honestly, sincerely apologize that we are meeting under such rough conditions, but I honestly believe that there is a lot we can critically interrogate here. You know, this film's inspiration, as it obviously perplexes many, as we once again scramble to really pin down what it is that informs the female gaze in all of its I want to use kind language here. Explorations, expressions, expressed peculiarities, deviations, perversions, some might even say, although that's a bit less of a sympathetic term. And honestly, I would reserve that to the kind of content we discussed in the last video, Haunting Adeline. You are more than welcome to actually go and check that out. Anyway, I probably won't discuss this along the margins that one might expect, and not necessarily because I don't want to. I mean, there's a lot topically that we can definitely pull apart here.
This is going to be so strange. I genuinely want to see it so bad. An outcast woman in a fishing village that looks 1600-ish commissioned someone to make her a man out of wicker. Show us how he make the dick. And that man is being played by Alexander Skarsgård.
The Wicker trailer is what we all needed, apparently, to unite us, because I am absolutely crying over the reactions. We all agree we're gonna thirst over the new Basket Man romance. Like, they made him real hot, like we're gonna be weird about it. I mean, she's not wrong.
What educates the female fantasy, for example, the non-conversation around the quote-unquote older spinster's still pertinent sexual desire and how that is seldom addressed in modern conversation, or even whether or not there is room for us to agree on whether or not we find the fantasy to be toxic, liberating, regressive, or otherwise. Like I said, there's a lot to get into, which this video unfortunately does not have time for, everything that we could possibly sink our teeth into. I'm not going to get into all of it, but that is all to say. When I first watched this trailer, you guys, my first thought was, like, objectively, this is weird. Okay, this is really weird. But in a weird way, my first thought was, I see how this makes sense. And you know what? That disturbed me because I couldn't explain to myself exactly why, which slowly became a problem, because you guys know I love discussing these things. I love debating about these things, particularly when they concern, these gendered conceptions of idealized images. I realized pretty quickly that I would not really need to get into the meat and bones behind I understand why a particular female demographic would feel enticed by such a representation, right? I would not need to explain my reasons to a woman, because for whatever reason, as disturbed or perplexed or intrigued as most women are, I think we all have this common understanding.
I've watched women explain in depth why they like the concept of this movie, and it kind of just boils down to, you want a love slave that doesn't talk back. And to that I say, why is it weird and misogynist when men do it, but when women do it, it's empowering and it's romance and it's passion? Like, look at all the shows that come out for marketed towards women. All like creepy shit. women lusting over serial killers. Why is this a thing? Right, and I'm not saying so men can be vindicated. I'm saying, why do we not look at women the same way we look at these men? Granted, women don't have the power to oppress, but it's still weird behavior. Why are we sexualizing a not only is he non-consenting, he's like an object. He's an object. Like, are we, I don't know, maybe I'm too deep.
Articulate in bullet pointed terms, what is it about this that is inciting such a visceral, such a raw reaction like among women? Like, whatever the formula is, okay, for the ideal masculine partner, what is it about this that has somehow gotten it right? Personally, I think it is incredibly important, you guys, to get to the bottom of why it is you are actually drawn to something. You know, no matter how taboo, culturally relatable, authentic, strange, whatever the cultural artifact happens to be. For the most part, obviously, we like what we like and we hardly ever interrogate why. You know, the first interrogations of preference, especially when we are in our younger years, are really mundane. It's about things like your favorite ice cream flavor or your favorite color or the preferred, I don't know, like beverage in the morning. It's not that deep. It doesn't require this exhaustive like socio-political autopsy, but preference clearly becomes considerably more interesting when it starts to concern the type of person you desire, when it concerns the kind of relationship you repeatedly imagine, or, you know, if you're an avid reader like myself, the types of narrative structures you find yourself repeatedly returning to. I have always loved war stories, for instance, and eventually I had to actually look at myself in the mirror and realize, okay, this is clearly betraying something deeper, several things deeper and unexamined in my own internal architecture.
Maybe, I'm sure y'all gonna drag me for this, but I just think it's weird across the board. Why take the average thriller movie is a woman's romance movie, and I'm trying to figure out why that is.
My point in all of this is our preferences are our preferences are a window into our personal metaphysics. There is this Latin phrase that I love, and it essentially just translates to, you know, there is no disputing matters of taste. But I was thinking about this, especially so in the context of WICKER, and I thought to myself, well, you know, maybe taste can occasionally be disputed, okay, occasionally be criticized and debated when asking what kind of world the thing we repeatedly desire presupposes. Texas, particularly as contemplated by Aristotle, is as a formed disposition. What we repeatedly practice becomes, in some measure, what we are inevitably disposed toward. And so when it comes to WICKER, although there are obviously those who don't understand it at all, to the extent that I've even heard arguments saying that, you know, we are more regularly encountering cultural moments that more aggressively expose, okay, kind language, I want to use kind language, moments that expose the unattainable unpredictability of the female sexual ideal, expose how far our minds have gone, okay, how terribly our imaginations have degraded, or conversely, how profoundly the female imagination has been liberated by male opinion. Okay, there are those who do understand the fantasy, I guess, without, you know, craving it. And that's honestly, you guys, what gets me about this, because I think that is the target audience. I think the audience that is kind of slightly put off by it, but also kind of gets it, but also is like, what is this? But also is like, yeah, I could kind of see myself working with this, like that, you know, those of us who are kind of just watching, I don't even know, like watching this with, I guess, not as much enthusiasm as the majority. I feel like this movie was made specifically to draw us into a particular familiarization. And that familiarization, you guys, I'm fully convinced at this point, is not with, you know, taboo sexual fantasies. No, it is with AI. What no one seems sufficiently interested in discussing is the foundational premise of this film.
Oh. I want you to make me a husband.
Be at the chapel in a month.
Good.
A socially excluded middle-aged woman goes to a basket maker to make her a husband out of wicker. The premise obviously belongs to a remarkably durable, family of stories, okay? It is the manufacturing of the fashioned beloved, a usually desperate human attempt to manufacture companionship, to manufacture a solution to, again, the problem being social exclusion, isolation, just not really fitting in with the world at large through some sort of technology, some sort of magic system, some sort of just characteristically an unconventional solution, right? And this husband, right, according to the Wicker trailer, need not necessarily conform to the conventional grammar of masculine attractiveness, okay? He is simply configured around her desires. In fact, he does not just superficially possess these desirable qualities. He appears to simply exist for the sole purpose of being desirable to her. And this, you guys, is significant. This really stands out to me because whenever I hear a woman speak, more accurately, complain about the diminishing standard of masculinity, notwithstanding the fact that the term is seldom ever defined correctly, the complaint is frequently about men's behavior within a particular relational economy, and specifically in service to women. Men no longer pursue, they no longer demonstrate initiative, they no longer there's no chivalry, okay? They no longer plan for things like dates. They don't open doors, they're not initialized to pay for things. You see what I'm saying? And I see the same argument mirrored in reverse when men complain about the fact that women are no longer the same behaviorally they were 50 years ago. They're no longer incentivized to the same service, particularly to men, to their husbands. I hear that hyper-independence has ruined our femininity. I hear that we are too sexually liberated, that we are too we are too unwilling to depend on men, that we are too unwilling to perform relational or traditionally domestic roles. And to an extent, I fully understand, you guys, and I agree, honestly, with both critiques. We're not behaving the same ways we once did. But honestly, I'm a lot more disturbed by the fact that, you guys, I think we have become just way too comfortable defining the redeemability of another person's identity, that is masculine or feminine, according to the degree to which that identity as expressed remains fulfilling to us, right? It remains fulfilling to the opposite end according to our standards. It's like, as a woman, you can't conveniently define masculinity according to the degree to which it services you. And I think it's the same on the other end of the spectrum. You can't define generalized femininity according to the degree to which you feel women service themselves, their bodies, to be accessed by you. Anyway, eventually, I think the logic eventually reaches a rather grotesque apotheosis. Why tolerate another human being's irreducible will when I can just manufacture the person I want? That is where I think Wicker becomes considerably more interesting and considerably more frightening than its mere sexual premise. I think as a culture, we have always been embarrassed by the aches of the marginalized, okay? Whatever that distinction of marginalized people happen to be, and in particular, the ache of the unmarried, of the widow, or the woman who just longs to be seen. In general, I think we are remarkably compassionate towards loneliness in abstraction, but terribly cruel towards lonely people in reality, in the literal sense, when you actually have to deal with the pain, with the ache, and with what it actually means for society to function as it should towards lonely people. The lonely woman, okay, the unmarried woman is told in her 40s, in her 50s that, look, you were probably too picky in your youth to just settle for what your looks made you deserving of. And in the same measure, the lonely man is often told that he is socially defective, that men in and of themselves have this inherent functional issue in coming through for each other the way girls do, the way females are able to just to hold their own. Men, on the other hand, need to fix their problem, fix their epidemic, okay, and get with it, essentially. Both are told to interpret their social exclusion as evidence of some personal insufficiency. And guys, don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that the reasons behind these two groups these two groups struggle to find their place in community are identical. What I am saying though is that the issue they have is common, and what is also common is our continued disposition of honestly a lack of sympathy, lack of care, lack of warmth, general antagonism. Like it's such a universal problem, but obviously caused by different contextual issues. What if you've genuinely tried and made like serious efforts to try and find your people, but it's just not working? And that is the very premise against which Wicker recurses against. The main character, it's Fisherwoman. She's not merely horny, okay? She's not just looking for a good time, okay? She is ostracized. She is mocked aggressively. She is tired of living at the perimeter of a community that has already decided what she's worth. She commissions for herself a husband from a basket maker because the ordinary economy of like human belonging has failed her, not just in their sympathy, but in their advice. You know, you guys, I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, oh, you know, I'm just brutally honest. You know, I'm just telling you the truth about why you're failing to get with it in society, in community. I have truly developed so much contempt for that phrase because honestly, people who pride themselves around being brutally honest, around just telling the truth, are so... You're lying to me, and you're lying to yourself, because honestly, you prefer the brutality more than you do the honesty. But anyway, sorry, it's a conversation for another day. I get so riled up whenever I think about it. My point is, in general, we are living through a period where increasing numbers of people from wide demographics, not just, you know, older unmarried women, but even young people. A lot of people are struggling to find reciprocal, right, intentional, long-term companionship, and not necessarily because they don't want it. Okay, I am yet to find someone who is honest with me and honest with themselves about the fact that, look, I know I'm not in a relationship, or I've never been in a relationship, or yeah, I'm just trying to figure it out. But hey, I would be fine if I lived my entire life having never experienced that type of relation, specifically that type of romantic relationship before, having my needs satisfied. You know, I think it is definitely a need, but for so many it seems so out of reach, painfully out of reach. But the recurring mythic warning, when at least I look into the origins of these types of stories, these tales, I think this was based on a folk tale written, I think, in 2025. I'll link it, but there was a repeated principle that even in the ancients understood, but even modern myths and folktales understand. You cannot manufacture another consciousness without inevitably confronting its otherness. It's a well understood principle. I think of Pygmalion, Golem, even to some extent Frankenstein. All of those stories, you know, we all understand that, you know, it all goes well until it all goes wrong. They all realize that bringing something into being does not immediately confer the type of predictable sovereignty over that being. Even Adam himself, you guys, the first man, he is not permitted to manufacture for himself another human being, another counterpart, according to his own specifications. Instead, he receives another person. He does not manufacture for himself a mirror of his desires. He receives a corresponding like sentience that responds to his humanity. This distinction, I think, is so important, is so crucial in an age that has become so fascinated with artificial companionship. The deepest fantasy is probably not being given someone beautiful to love, but actually being given someone incapable of refusing you. And I think that's the scary bit. That's the part where
I've watched women explain in depth why they like the concept of this movie, and it kind of just boils down to, you want a love slave that doesn't talk back. And to that I say, why is it weird and misogynist when men do it? But when women do it, it's empowering and it's romance and it's passion.
I think we're not understanding that maybe the solution begins not with manufacturing what we want, but realizing that we've actually become miseducated in how to love each other. Anyway, Wicker seems to approach the fantasy from the opposite direction. What if otherness itself were the first and only property, and like humanity were the negligible property? What happens when social exclusion is translated into a constructed solution, or, in the modern age, a technological solution, rather than what actually demands a relational solution? Like, fundamentally, the fantasy of Wicca is not about sex, like, at all. It is about the frustration and the exhaustion of negotiating with the complexity of another person's will. And that could extend to the community's will. That could extend to the will of someone who just does not want you. Someone or a group of people who are just not disposed to understanding you, to accepting you, to having any measure, honestly, of sympathy towards you. And not because they can't, but because they won't. They refuse it. Women love the idea of a man who has literally no capacity, no like potential to disappoint them. And not because the man can do no wrong. Often all the man ever does, right, is wrong. All the man does is like he is always this, seriously, always like this menace to society. But it's with her. He just does not have that effect on her. Okay, he's tortured, but he is, I don't know, he's continually healed in her orbit. It's so, honestly, it's so disordered. It's so strange. But the point is, are we really trying to solve loneliness, or simply trying to abolish the possibility of being refused? Because those are radically different projects, One asks us, honestly, demands of us to become more capable of, as human beings, of communion, and the other asks us to engineer communion around our basest preferences. Like, Christ's primary command was not to construct the person who cannot disappoint you, but to love your neighbor as yourself. I mean, even the way Paul expressly defines love, it is precisely through the refusal to make the other an instrument of the self. I mean, yes, love is patient, love is kind, but more urgently, more crucially, love seeketh not its own. You see what I'm saying? We're not called to find mirrors of each other. We're not called to relational reciprocity by making essentially images of ourselves to just reflect our own desires and needs back to us. The Wicker husband is so fascinating because he literalizes a temptation already latent in modernity. When human beings become too exhausted, and honestly understandably so, by the difficulty of being loved by one another, perhaps we will find alternative solutions, right? Companions that essentially are too perfect, one, and cannot leave. The final irony, though, is so devastating because eventually we begin to understand that the more perfectly we have engineered the beloved to satisfy us, the less certain it becomes that we have actually learned how to love a beloved at all. There is another contemporary maxim I often hear in conversations about relationships, and that's specifically, you've got to know yourself first. You've got to love yourself first before you enter anything that relationally demanding. Know yourself, love yourself, find yourself, heal yourself, establish your identity as secure, as uncompromised by the opinions of others before you invest with another person. And I totally I understand the wisdom behind that. I don't agree with all parts of it, but you know what? Listen, it's been shoved down my throat long enough. So you know what? Let's stick with it. I get it. But I think Wicker raises a peculiar complication. Because what if our conception of self-knowledge has become too radically individualistic? And I know that kind of sounds weird. Like, how can it? Stay with me. What if knowing who I am has become, in all parts, defined to a knowledge of my preferences, my boundaries, my desires, my aesthetic, my sexuality, my ambitions, my wounds, without ever asking the more ancient question, what are human beings made for? What actually makes a human being's needs valid in the context of being human? The sexual priority of a human and the need, the urgency, honestly, for that human being to be invested in, with and around community simply does not compare to that of I don't know, like a frog, okay? You see what I'm saying? It's not the same. Human beings, for their humanity, however it is we define it, have priority. And I'm not saying you have to have the answer to that question. I'm just saying it's at least important that we start to think about these things, especially so in the age of AI, because not only does AI kill the need for not only self-realization, but human realization, but it also proves that you don't actually know what you are and who you are to the extent of what your humanity was made for in relational correspondence rather than in relational mirroring. There is a difference. The mirror tells me what I already am. The correspondent answers me, like encounters me as something other than myself, as I understand myself. See what I'm saying? The biblical word for helper, or Ezra corresponding to him, as it is more properly translated, is so much more conceptually richer than the modern therapeutic injunction to find yourself, because the corresponding other does not merely affirm the self or fulfill the self, but it actually answers the self. Marriage, friendship, community, even discipleship, those are all economies of correspondence. They reveal dimensions of ourselves that, like being in solitude, that moments, well, extended periods of solitude cannot exhaustively disclose, because another person possesses precisely what the mirror lacks: independent agency, right? Resistance, memory, interpretation, desire, and the capacity to say, like, look, this is not what you are. You are not, and please, I ask you to please forgive the vulgarity here, but I think it actually needs to be said. You, as a woman, and I fully appreciate, okay, it's a fantasy, it's not real, but seriously, you were not made to, listen, you were not made to have your back blown out by a werewolf, okay, a dryad, a vampire, or, good grief, a man made of wicker. That is just my opinion. Honestly, I may be a little bit too conservative for this. I don't know. But my point in all of this is, I think that this movie definitely appeals rather to a particular audience, and it is to normalize us, to make us a little bit more emotionally familiar with the idea of solving our loneliness or our lack of, I suppose, satisfaction with the ordinary man by outsourcing that need to, I think in this age, artificial resources, AI. I think that's what this is about. That's just how I feel about it. It may not be that deep. No, it is. It is definitely that deep. But yeah, that is all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Yeah, I will hopefully see you soon, although it may be, look, I always say that it may be a minute and then I pop up with something to say. So yeah, hopefully I'll see you soon. And I would love to know what you guys think. I know I came down a little bit hard here, but please, these are personal opinions. If you want to go and watch Wicker, do not let me be the one to, rain on your parade. So I will see you hopefully very soon. Please feel free to support me. I always appreciate the support. I always appreciate the view. And if you can, help a girl out, really appreciate it. I'll see you hopefully very soon. You take care and goodbye.